Hi, this is Kathy, and this is the Cinemile, the podcast where we record our walk home from the movies, but we also do a lot more than that. We do regular TV reviews over on our Patreon and have been reviewing Succession since season 1. Given it's coming back next week, which we can't wait for, we thought we would post the finale of season 3 and us chatting about it here for anyone who wants a refresher before the new season comes back. And then please come over to patreon.com/the Cinemile to join us chatting about it weekly.
Right, hello guys, welcome to our Succession Season 3 finale episode. What a finale that was.
I kind of want to watch it again before we talk about it, except that would mean we wouldn't record this episode for days because we won't have a chance to watch it
I
again.
wanted to watch it immediately.
Yeah, and actually it was really interesting because we said last week we were going to be in Ireland to watch it this week, and we watched it with Dave's mom, who's never seen an episode of Succession, and said, oh, I'll just sit and read my book while you guys watch it. And she proceeded,
was gripped.
She watched the entire episode, and I realised the episode worked 100% as a standalone episode.
Yeah, as always, full spoilers
full
here.
spoilers.
But the so even
she loved it. She was like, oh god, I need to go back and start this thing.
Kendall even explains in explicit detail his sort of tragic end of season 1.
There's so much to talk about. We're not going to have time to cover it all because we're out for a walk now, and then we're going to come back later and finish it all.
Yeah, so this is going to be a two-parter, so there'll be a little gap in the middle. But
wow.
So we'll finish. Wow, what an amazing episode! Like
Why do we have to wait?
That like a real climax.
Why do we have to wait a whole year? Can't they just film back-to-back Succession all year long?
What a finale! So here's how we're going to run this. There's a lot happened, so we're going to naturally finish with the sort of conclusion of this episode and the standoff. And we'll talk about the siblings as well, and how they unite, and how amazing all of that was. But let's maybe just talk about our sort of top line impressions of this episode before we go, and then we'll just go through some of the individual plots, because a lot happened.
Because we're in Ireland now, you're actually hearing tractors.
That was an actual tractor. So I think for me this was naturally very tense and drama filled. There's a big lorry standing here. This was naturally quite tense and filled with drama, but I thought this was one of the most emotionally charged episodes of Succession I've ever seen.
It was
one of the most sort of human and heartwarming in many ways as well. It's very...
Dave, if you called it heartwarming, you've got problems.
It was heartwarming.
I mean, we saw the gang get together.
Finally saw those siblings unite.
Yeah.
And I think for me, we've said previously that this feels like Roman's season, and I feel maybe Tom's season in many ways, but this felt like this was a real turning point for Roman, more so than Kendall and Shiv, who I feel Kendall was already over on way out on his own, as he says, but for Shiv was kind of on the fence, but Roman really took a brave step this episode. But more about that later. I was quite personally affected by the way the siblings treated each other in this episode, and the acting on display here from everybody was just insane. Give all the awards to Succession next year.
I think it's interesting because for me as an episode it worked as such an incredible accumulation of 3 seasons worth of plot. And I'm just going to come right out and say it, my MVP of the episode is Jesse Armstrong. Is that his name?
Yes.
I mean, the writing.
100%.
How to bring it all together, and you've all the pieces laid down, and the very ending when the mom...
Sorry, Jeremy. Do you mean Jesse Armstrong, the writer of the show?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, yeah.
Jesse Armstrong,
I always mix up him
show.
and Jeremy Strong, who plays
confusing.
Kendall. Sorry, yeah.
For it all to come together and for it all to be snatched away because the mom has a toy boy who wants to curry a favour with Logan Roy was just
it's all so Machiavellian.
It's so good.
And
I think above all else, and it's beautiful. The acting is phenomenal.
But
the writing just blows me
the
away.
writing is insane, and also the foreshadowing, right? The Nero and Spuros mentioned, like the beginning of the season by Tom. Roman or Greek, I forget, mythological characters who he explains explicitly to Greg, who betrays his pregnant wife and marries his
and
his
you've got
cuckold.
like themes.
And
We were
my
like
Spuros.
themes of like the people who these characters, say these three core siblings, have most trod upon and like taken for granted, come back and bite them in the arse.
Yeah.
So you've got Kendall completely taking Greg for granted all the time, being awful to him at his birthday party, but needing Greg at the end of last season to give him the papers. Shiv being awful to her husband.
Yeah, awful.
And Roman always relying on Jerry, and like
Yeah.
bit weird relationship they have, but always presuming Jerry's got his back.
But he pushed it too far,
And then
they
all of
all
them-
pushed it too
So
far.
they all deserve it, but at the same time we're rooting for
I know,
them.
that's why it's so brilliant. We hate them. They're awful people, but yet we love them.
Because
and I
we-
feel bad for
That's
them.
why it's such good
And-
writing, because individually we're kind of to an extent not really rooting for any of them, but because what we're rooting for them is the collective. They finally all became one.
Yeah.
They're a hive mind. They're
They
finally going to work
Voltroned.
together. They're so powerful.
That scene in the
and then
taxi.
they're undone by all the people that they fucked over,
Yes,
and
yes,
they deserve it.
they did it to themselves, and that's why it's so like it is like a Greek tragedy on so many levels. And do you know what? It's also just like this episode felt very, and a lot of people are calling this out online. There's like almost deliberate like visual references to The Godfather. Like it feels very. I mean, it's
Dave's
set
mom
in,
said, "This is very like The Godfather."
It is. Yeah, my mom called it. It's like it's in Italy. There's the musical cues at the wedding sounded like the Godfather score, and that final moment where Logan puts his hand on Tom's shoulder and Shiv witnesses it through
the
that
door,
It's
yeah.
the exact. It's the reverse of the final shot of the first Godfather with Al Pacino and Diane Keaton and the door being closed. It's very reminiscent of that. Anyway, we said we were not going to talk about the end, and here we are. But
Yeah,
it's
but
just
we're
too good to
we
miss.
have to talk about like how the series and the episode
Of
like
course,
mix together
sorry. But
before we
let's-
get into the details.
We're going to come back to that because I just want to talk about this forever. But we're gonna let's go back to the start of the episode, because the ending of this episode was so monumental that you forget. It almost overshadows all the amazing stuff that came
So
before.
much happened that I couldn't even take proper notes. Like I could barely follow it. I was like, I do need a rewatch.
It was intense. So we open on a very small and quiet scene, which I thought was unusual for this show.
Very
which
unusual.
Tends to be very fast paced. Like the dialogue is fast paced, the plot is moving at 100 miles an hour.
But it's interesting.
And-
We open already with the siblings. After what happened, Kendall, in the last episode, we open with the siblings on a different beat because they're kind of joined together because they're
And
at their
Logan.
mom's wedding.
Logan reading to the grandson.
There's an element of concern for Kendall, but also the siblings are like kind of joined forces for this whole episode, which is quite unusual.
Yes,
And they are
from the off.
expressing emotions of love and concern, and probably tied together with the fact that you're at your mom's wedding. They do feel like more of a unit than if you think about Kendall's birthday episode and how they felt in that.
But what the other thing? Yeah, I completely agree. But the other thing that struck me about this opening scene where they're playing Monopoly,
I felt like the Monopoly was a little on the nose.
a little bit on the nose.
Like I would have rather than see them say like playing snakes and ladders or
Yeah.
something. Do you know what I mean?
It's a bit too obvious, and then they even shoehorned in some income tax jokes. But what I really appreciated about that scene was that as a contrast, it made me realize as a contrast to every other scene in the entirety of Succession, the characters are always talking about the plot, right? They are. There's always a reason to be in those rooms together. They're always talking about business and the company.
Yeah.
I cannot think of a scene when it is just characters chilling, or there is no objective to the scene, or it's not propelling the plot forward. Do you know what I mean? This was.
That's why the writing's unbelievable.
It was just a quiet moment, which you never get in Succession. Both of Logan reading to the grandson, which is post what happened in the last episode, kind of chilling for some reason. There was a chill down my spine as he read to that boy.
Well, it's like the boy
And-
likes a simple story, and Logan's already questioning the boy's intellect instead of. and then he just go, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "You know your dad's fine, right?" But like the implication is that the kid / PR assistant, the kids saw and found their dad in the pool.
Yeah.
Like that's really awful. So it was surprising to see that Logan would have cared enough about his grandkids to even be reading them a story. That actually surprised me.
I thought really interesting move as well for the show to not, I think lesser shows would dwell in the moment, the drama of that moment, right? The children finding him in the pool, being rushed to the hospital, all that kind of stuff.
We know they don't care about kids.
Well, they don't. But it's more that the show is more interested in the quiet aftermath of a tragic event.
Yeah, they didn't show us anyone finding his body.
Which I think is more interesting. And anyway, so I agree a little bit on the nose with them playing Monopoly, but what I really liked, it really set the tone for this episode, like you say, of the siblings reuniting.
And Roman kind of says to Shiv, "Oh, I heard what you tried to do," as in about Jerry, and Shiv's like, "Oh yeah, fuck off," and that's it. Jerry didn't make the complaint. Shiv's moves over, and that's like, it's this constant game of moves where like we think something big is going to happen from the end of the last episode because of Shiv leaning on Jerry to make a statement, but in fact nothing happened, and they've moved past it already.
Yeah.
But what the Roman plot really served was to undermine his status with his dad, which is what the show needed to do. Sorry, there's a car is coming.
I'm standing here.
So basically
we're walking down a country road where there are no footpaths. It's a bit
so basically that's I love that just throwaway line of like, Roman knows what Shiv tried to do and no hard feelings. Grand, sure I would have made the same move myself.
The show does move on quick, doesn't it?
It really moves
on
quick.
The other interesting thing I thought about this scene was the way everyone is acting. Everyone is acting very differently because of what happened to Kendall.
They're almost like, "Hey buddy."
Yeah, which shows a sort of an acknowledgement that they are human beings.
I mean, they think that he tried to commit suicide.
Yeah, I think they express concern for him in their own sort of way, and I think that
like,
only escalates throughout this episode.
And one of them says, and I can't remember who I wrote it down, one of them says, "I love you, I don't want you to die."
Yeah.
But then Kendall's like, "You need an intervention. You need an intervention. You need an intervention. You can take this little committee of public fucking safety and fuck off." And then Connor's like, "You need to stop trying to kill Pop." And then Kendall just proves to be awful because he's like, "You have no idea how it feels as the eldest son to have something promised to
and
me.
And then that hung for about, half a minute.
To the point where I actually said to his mom, like, for your reference, your man's actually the oldest son.
Even she'd figured it out just from looking at them. And like, again, hats off to Alan Ruck in this scene, because that half a minute where between Kendall saying as the eldest son and before his eruption, his body language is so perfectly conveyed. He's got a knife and he's scraping the table, and he is
he's like, "I'm the eldest son!"
tipping point. And I thought it's just a beautiful moment for like there's not a lot of Connor in this episode, but like this was an amazing sort of peak, an emotional peak for Connor as a character, and it kind of tells us a couple of things about him. It's just like,
well, he says, "I am the eldest son of our father. I didn't see Pop for 3 years."
Yeah.
And it's like, ooh, because we were talking in the last episode wondering what the relationship between him and their mother is, because it's all a bit strange. And then he says, "I didn't see Pops for 3 years," so presumably when his dad left him, remarried their mom. And there's some simmering resentment there, and I'm like, and we know like he was sort of a father figure to the boys because he, for example, took them camping on that trip that ended up being accredited to the dad.
Yeah.
And he's the one who, like, as Mo says to the siblings, like, "I love you." Like, he's always the most affectionate and the least cruel to the siblings. And you just see this sense of like he's constantly being like, Kendall truly thinks he's the eldest son. Like, Kendall is so crazily self-centered in that moment.
Insane. But they kind of all are, even Con. However, I think what's interesting...
we know Kendall is, like, we do know, and we learn even more from this episode, like, Kendall's profoundly depressed. He feels like disconnected from his own body and his own family. But he still has the gall to claim to be the eldest son when he isn't.
But I think, we see progression between this episode and the last episode from Kendall in terms of his self-awareness, and I think that explosive conversation with his father in the last episode really, he's echoing that man's words in this episode. "I'm not a good person." I think he's finally coming to terms with the fact that he's not who he thinks he is in many ways. But I think what's interesting to me with Kendall is that he starts this episode. He goes on a bit of a journey in this episode alone. He starts this episode coming back from hospital.
He's like, I just had one too many limoncellos.
Yeah, attempting. He's almost trying to build up his armor again. If you consider his sort of the fantasy that it constructs about himself, which we talked about last episode about the White Knight and the hero, he almost attempts to build that up over himself again, you know, with his like, you know, I'm very busy, there's lots of things happening, I'm talking about putting all the documents up on Instagram.
Oh my God.
I've got a Vanity Fair piece coming, and we realize that illusion that he's trying to build up isn't even like even the PR person says to them that we're chasing Vanity Fair, like there is nothing there.
But
Yet
she's so inappropriate, by the way.
Well, yes, but
unprofessional.
But very unprofessional. But by default, he comes out and it's this almost subconscious instinct for him now just to be firing on these cylinders. And it's only, I think, his energy for that world which he has created for himself wanes very quickly throughout this episode. And as soon as there's a legitimate business crisis, he cannot and will not handle it. He says, I don't want to be involved, Shiv, just leave me alone.
I mean, he's incredibly
drags
depressed.
him into it. And I think...
And he's incredibly disconnected from the situation, and I think all the elements of last episode of like the cruelty really from both of his parents, I mean, Logan was explicitly cruel to him, but his mother also saying, you know, you can only come to half of my wedding because my fiance, she makes it very clear from the last episode, they've sown the seeds, my fiance wants your dad at certain events, so therefore you can't be there. And he said, and we laughed about it, you know, your ex-husband that you hate is like getting preferential treatment over the son that you love. And it's like all of that, and then but it is very serious because Kendall is with his children and acting like that, like very unsafely. So there's so much going on, and come here, we're only in the first scene of this episode. Like, how are we going to get through it?
Well,
because we have to go back to work in 10 minutes.
We'll get there. We're coming back later. So before we move on from that scene, let's just finish off on Connor, because the other bit we get with Connor is, you know, he's post his sort of meltdown with his siblings, and he's with what's his
Willow.
And
And he says, my campaign is fucked and you're going to leave me, my family hates me and I love you. And then she goes,
I thought this was one of the most honest, he's one of the most honest characters. We've said it throughout this
he's consistent.
season. He's consistently honest and speaks the truth and doesn't
he does
really
deal.
He
tries
doesn't
to be
deal
a good
in
big brother.
He's not duplicitous.
No.
I think he's very lacking in self-awareness like Kendall, and he's also presents sort of, you know, like his dad. He knows how to manipulate situations to his advantage. We've seen that earlier in the season.
But he does
with
that from
Shiv
a business perspective more so. Like even when
he's
Shiv was doing that letter about Kendall, he was like, no way, Shiv.
He's also the least cruel of all of them.
He is.
And
it's probably because he doesn't have their mom.
Well, I think possibly, yeah. He didn't grow up. We don't know about his mother, but
their mom's very cruel.
I think the way to look at it is Connor almost serves as an interesting sort of comparison point to the rest of the siblings. And I think the closer the show is kind of saying, the closer you are in proximity to Logan and the business, the worse you become.
Yeah, you're more corrupt.
And I think the same is true of Tom. If you look at Tom throughout his whole, you know, starting as a potentially, like, I think he is a nice person at heart. This is him breaking bad. As with Greg, they literally say, who needs souls anyway? Let's make a deal with the devil. Like they're even aware of what they're doing. But I think Connor has been apart from the business and tried to get into it this season, and
but
was
also
blocked
apart
out.
from the dad, when he said, I didn't see Pop for 3 years, do you know what, Connor, you were probably better off.
He's better off, and I think
because
it has
that cruelty that we witness in that final scene again with how Logan speaks and acts to his children. He's so cruel that Con is better off to have had less exposure with him. And when Willow says, fuck it, you're a nice man, I'll marry you,
I thought
it's
that
like
was
he
lovely.
is nice.
It was in a way.
He's got all of his own problems, but he's never cruel. To her, you get the impression that as much as she's bored by him and thinks he's a buffoon, there's nothing there that's sinister, or like even when you just see callously how Roman's walking around talking to the like Contessa about Greg. He's so horrible.
Yeah, unnecessarily cruel.
And you just get the impression you'd never see Con doing that. But what I found fascinating, and my favourite scene with Con, is when he So some people actually like Con way more than they like the other kids, like Logan's assistant, and he found out what's going in Logan's shake, and he's like,
Yeah.
all of
The
those
b- the
ingredients are to make your sperm better.
Maca root and the baby
Which
batter.
made me think though, oh, Con wants to be a dad, because how would he know that all those ingredients are to enhance
Oh,
your
that's
sperm?
interesting. Yeah.
So I think Con wants to have like this dynasty with Willow, and he wants to be like the next president and have all these kids, and he's this whole Obama situation like envisioned for himself.
I'm really rooting for Con. I kind of, in a way, want him to be the next president of the United
But I
States.
love that he says, oh, she
even
told
though
me.
that would be terrible.
So even like the secretary will talk to Con, but she won't talk to the other kids. Because they're all so horrible. Whereas because they're always all trying to make moves around the company, but Con's always just like, but how will this help my campaign?
Yeah.
So like, Con will do anything, even if it's like take cable in Europe. If that means that you can be the president, like every time he says anything, it's like, how will this work for my campaign? So yeah, Con's really enjoyable. I wonder about
Con
the
got
actor if he wants to. I wonder about the actor if he wishes that Con was in it more. Like, I'd be jealous of the other three if I was him.
Yes, but I think he.
But he
I
gets to
think,
be there all the
again,
time.
by putting him on the peripheral, it makes him a more interesting character, I think.
Yeah.
And I think I was really happy for him in this episode, even though I think there's problems at the core of his relationship with him and Willow.
I mean, it's a transactional
Clearly, she's not
relationship.
really into it in many ways, and like I just loved, again, back to the the writing and the strength of it. The way she accepted his proposal was with the words "fuck it," which
Fuck it, you're nice.
says so much about the reasons which she is saying yes.
But even when Roman's like, oh my god, she accepted, everyone's so surprised. But Roman did say to her, you may as well accept, you'll probably die in like 10 years anyway. Like everyone's
so
just
awful.
so outwardly acknowledging that she's only with him because he's rich. Like if Con had no
Yeah.
money tomorrow, like Willow would not be there. Okay, I think we should go away and come back later because we're only on the first scene, but we've got through Con and our overall thoughts on the episode.
Yeah, so we will come back very shortly for you guys, and we will talk about the siblings, the three other siblings, and then the explosive
Logan
finale.
and Tom.
Yeah. Oh my God, so good. All right, see you in a bit. Hi, we're back for part 2 of the Succession season 3 finale spoiler special episode.
For reference, we were recording this in the pitch black Wednesday night, walking around Dave's mom's garden.
Yeah, it's like our schedule is so out of control between like
It's just because of work
working,
and the kids.
We're still working. We've got kids. Trying to do a million
We're
things.
trying to like not be really
you-
rude when you're visiting someone and you just like completely
We
ignore
have to
them.
go-
Just
You'd remember that show we made you watch, Mom, that you didn't know anything about. We're now going to go walk around your house for an hour and talk about it while you mind our kids. Okay, bye. So we didn't. So we ended up having to wait till the kids are in bed.
if one
and
of
now
us breaks their ankle because we're walking around in the dark recording,
that would be pretty.
it would be an epic way to go.
Okay, so let's recap. So we spent about 20 minutes talking about the opening scene. So who knows how long this is going to take. So we're going to
We're
we
doing this
spoke
by
about
full
Connor as
moon
well.
as well.
I feel like we've covered Monopoly and Connor. Why don't we talk about the meeting between of two titans, between the Gojo and Waystar Royco
Yeah.
CEOs and head honchos, Alexander Skarsgård, whose name I forget, Mads, is that, or Mass?
I just think
Forgotten
you're
his name.
stereotyping people from,
Perhaps.
from Sweden.
Yeah, they're all called Mads over there. This is an interesting meeting. Doesn't quite go how I think I was expecting it
Me
to go in
neither.
the audience.
I have to say, Alexander Skarsgård is playing. He's different than what he normally is.
Yeah, he's very good in this.
I don't think that I love
It's an
him.
interesting character.
I don't love the casting.
Oh, okay.
I think he's good. I think he's a good actor. I
You think he's
really
miscast?
good. I just think it's the first time I thought like when they brought Adrian Brody in, like I loved him, but like I just think
Adrian Brody was perfect as this sort of billionaire hobo chic.
if you're
right?
gonna bring like an actor into Succession, because clearly now he's gonna be a huge character in season 4.
Yeah.
I don't know. My only hope is, because obviously he's really attractive, I'd love if him and Shiv hooked up next season. That's my new dream.
I mean, that seems incredibly
But
unlikely.
he said sex is futile and he doesn't care about
Well,
it.
that's what was interesting to me in this scene, watching the two of them. They have no interest in anything. They like he
Yeah, it's quite
at
grim.
it's really cynical. At one point he says everything is boring. Everything is boring.
He sounds like Oscar, our 4-year-old.
He comes across much like Kendall, you know, from the party to this. Like everything is just incredibly boring to him. These people, you know, who they just have everything, so nothing is interesting. Like I think the material world is nothing. It's pointless. Like and they're surrounded in this. You know, the show brilliantly portrays the beauty of like Tuscany and these amazing villas, and we and my mom as well, we were watching this like, oh my god, it's stunning. And
You
these
know
people
what's
are just
freaking-
like
They don't
just
see it.
bored.
Like Logan goes, so you want me to say your place is fucking nice or something?
Yeah, what do you want to do? Some small talk? They're just like they don't give a shit. And the other
But
thing,
we forgot to talk about on the way over when Logan and Roman are on the boat and Roman again comes out with his rampant homophobia. Are you scared of pussy? Is it all screens or up the ass for you? That's the
Yeah.
conversation him and Roman are making in the fucking boat. So it's
brutal.
It's just
Um,
wild.
the that was also an uncomfortable thing to watch with your mom, by the way, with no context. And then I had to turn to, and then I felt the need to apply the context. So I was like, "Oh, just so you know, Mom, he accidentally sent a dick pic meant for a
I can't believe
coworker
you said the word dick to your mom.
to his dad."
When you said
uh,
dick to your mom, I was actually
How
really
else would you
uncomfortable.
describe a penis
Penis?
picture? A penis picture.
I would say a picture
It's a
of his
dick pic. It's a dick pic.
I would say a picture of his penis.
You think my mom's not aware of the phrase dick pic?
Yes, I do think she's not aware of it.
But like I
Well,
mean,
she is now.
they are synonymous with political scandals. They're everyday. They're banal.
They're
Dick
not
pics are
banal,
banal. They're in
Dave.
the everyday.
They're not
news.
banal.
No.
They're horrifying.
Okay.
Now, back.
Poll to the readers. Are dick pic the readers?
No
are
one's
dick
reading
pics,
this.
Are
and no
dick
one's
pics
reading
banal?
this. Come on, we're out of control.
Okay, sorry. No, other thing that struck me in this scene is Logan's contempt for people, right? And we've kind of, we've spoken a bit this season about how when the average person shows up, it's always quite unexpected. You know, the homeless man who was branded by Kendall and Roman. Like it's always like this incredible disparity when. Do you want to like be in the moment here? Or are you just going to take pictures of the moon? This is incredibly distracting. I'm like talking.
I wanted to take a picture of the moon for our Instagram.
For fuck's sake! Like, do you want to have a conversation? This
I am
podcast
having-
is you and me having a conversation. It's not me addressing hundreds of people by myself and you taking pictures of the moon.
Oh, but it is.
Right, so what was I saying? I don't know. Anyway, oh yeah,
You're
the
thinking about
contempt.
when they meet normal
he
people.
has a really interesting bit of dialogue, which I don't have to hand, but when he speaks about when Logan speaks about when I came to this country, he says everyone was kind of lean and hungry and powerful, and now they're all just like
Scrawny
fat
on
and-
meth and yoga.
That's it, scrawny and on meth and yoga. It's like
he
he
goes,
got.
do you want me to tell you what a pretty pecker you got, which I really enjoyed? And then Mads Nicholson says to him, we're flying like a fucking rocket ship and you're sinking like a lead balloon. You can't become a tech leader because you and your company are too old. And I think, again, we know Logan loves when someone plays hard to get.
I think so too. I think
this, like,
I think
sealed the deal
Logan.
for him.
I think Logan admires this guy in this one meeting more than he has his kids their entire life.
Because he's like, oh, he's a self-made man.
Yeah, exactly. He
admires,
loves
yeah.
that. He admires it, and he knows that the guy is telling the truth and is on it.
But isn't it really unfair of Logan, because it's like he resents his kids so much because they're not self-made, but like he raised them with a silver spoon, and then that's a fucking rod to their backs because nothing they can ever
They
do.
were
He'll never be
damned.
proud of them
They were-
because he'll be like, you
Yeah,
were raised
exactly.
with a silver
They
spoon.
were doomed from the start.
I think he was
Damned if you
proud of
do,
Shiv,
damned
you
if you
see, because she had forged her own path, and then as soon as she towed the line, he just hated her.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
I think it's really like it's such a fucked up dynamic.
So then the scene ends with him sending Roman home in what is one of the most obvious plays. Right, firstly, like, we know Logan well enough to know what's going on here. I mean, how does Roman not spot it straight away? Like, he doesn't
But
say
Roman's enthralled
fuck
with his
off to the
dad.
guy. He doesn't.
Roman's like
I think Roman cannot believe what he refuses to believe what is happening. He keeps to his siblings. He keeps trying to explain it away, like he's got a plan. He's the last one to acknowledge what the dad is doing.
But I think we've learned throughout the seasons that like Roman has the most probably like overtly and maybe physically abusive relationship with the dad, and Roman is so proud of himself that this season he's like doing well at work. He's daddy's number one little boy, and like the dad, he's so enthralled with his dad that I think that's why we see at the end Roman breaks down the most, because he really thinks that like his dad really wants him to succeed, and like that his dad really loves him, and he says at the end, what do I have? I have love. And I think that's why he refuses to believe what's going on in this scene. Like he kind of knows, but he's like, nah, there's no way.
That's one
he
of the
also
most...
doesn't want to tell Shiv though, because when she's like, what happened, he's like, nothing, because I think he's like a bit embarrassed that he got sent away.
Yes, you're right.
He's been
There's
making such a big deal of how he's like
and he's been
number
keeping
one.
her out of everything anyway, and it implies that he's kind of in on it until it all comes crashing down.
Yeah, like in the last episode or the episode before for Kendall's birthday, when he was so awful, he's like, oh fuck you, me and dad have done a deal without you. Like he's so horrible to Shiv in that moment, because he loves excluding people, but as soon as he's being excluded, he's like a little baby who breaks down.
Well, let's talk about the three of them then, because this is their episode, right? This is Siblings Unite.
Yeah.
Connor has kind of stepped away. He's had his peace, and he's gone off with Willow to be a nice guy and stay out of this
And have
kind
babies.
of thing. And have babies.
Have super sperm babies.
So this is really, it's their story, and I think what I like about this season, which has just been amazing. Like, let's take a pause and just say it's ridiculous how good this show is.
It's almost trite to be like Succession's amazing, but
it's almost like I don't understand how everyone in the world. It feels like everyone is watching it, but if you're not, if you're not watching it, you're not listening to this. But Jesus
no one's listening
Christ,
to this who doesn't watch it.
Everyone needs to watch it. So
we did get our friends Rose and Niall onto it recently.
We did.
We found uninitiated.
So the season kind of starts and kicks off with, I think it was episode 2 to be fair, but that episode where they're all in Kendall's house and they're all together.
Yeah.
And there's this moment where they might unite, and it kind of all falls apart thanks to some donuts. That's
all the dad has to do to knock their deals at that early. They're much stronger in this episode.
And well, only because they are, they're kind of forced into the corner, right?
Well, they realise what's happening, basically.
They weren't able to. I think they would not have been able to unite, because Roman and Shiv clearly, like when they will side with the dad unless the odds are completely stacked against them. In this case, if they were set to lose everything they wanted, that's what forced their hand. So it's almost not like a big jump, and not a big brave jump for them in many ways, but the scene where they...
How did they suddenly find out something was amiss? Was it because Jerry and Frank and your man all suddenly disappeared?
Yeah, they just figure out, right? So Roman's sent away from the meeting, so that's a red flag. Jerry and Frank are suddenly, they hear the rumour that they are in the country, which they weren't before. Greg finds out on my favourite one of my favourite lines in this episode. He finds out on a service called Lackey Slack.
I was wondering, I missed that because the dialogue was too quickly. I didn't know what Greg was talking
funny.
about.
It's obviously like a Slack channel where all the lackeys communicate. Lackey Slack. He found out that the finance people have come to Italy and they're all complaining that the pillows are too hard.
Right. Okay.
So that's what they get tipped off that there's big movement happening. Like Logan has mobilized a team and something's happening fast, right? And none of them know anything about it, so they obviously feel like they're being... Like, they are very competent and aware and hyper-aware of business movements and
they've
things move
got
so
spidey
fast.
senses.
So they do, and they were correct.
And then it's like Shiv and Roman are like, fuck, we need to get Kendall because he's like knows the most about the business, and
which I liked. I was like, yeah, they were trying to bring him in, and just poor Kendall again. I felt so bad for him in this moment. He's just like, no. A suicide attempt. He's having a mental breakdown. His self-perspective, his reality is falling apart. What does he say? I feel like...
This is where he says, can you guys do it without me? I don't want to get into it, Shiv. I'm not here. And to say I'm not here is quite dark. And then he says, there's something wrong with me. I'm not feeling connected to my kids or my endeavours. And he's saying, I'm not a good person. And Roman's like, whatever, you're fine. He says, I'm bad. Roman's like, lighten up, glum glum. And then he's like, I killed a kid at your wedding. It's fucking lonely. I'm all apart. And then And what was really interesting about this moment is that Shiv and Roman, I mean, obviously, unless you're now a complete psychopath, they do stop thinking about the business and tune into Kendall and say, like,
up
what
until
happened?
she gets a phone call.
And I do love when Shiv's like, you ruined my wedding in so many ways. But what's interesting is when he explains what happened, and I actually had forgotten that he had jumped back in a little bit and tried to look for the guy. And when he's explaining it, Roman actually says, if it pleases the court, it sounds like you didn't kill him. He killed him. The road and the water killed him. This is a hero story. I would have been out of there like a tabby cat out of a bath. And he's like, and Roman makes jokes like, this is why there was no good service at the wedding. I waited 40 minutes for a gin and tonic.
But this is Roman's attempt at making Kendall feel better, and that's his, it's his weapon. Humor is his default position to everything.
He says, who hasn't clipped a kid with a Porsche? Who hasn't clipped a kid with a Porsche? I've killed kids too. He's like, and then Kendall's just like, I'm blown into a million pieces. But Kendall does start laughing because Roman's actually working.
He makes him laugh, and I love that. Yeah. That's such a beautiful moment because Shiv and Roman are doing their best to reach out to Kendall and make him feel better, and they are ill-equipped because of their upbringing in many ways to do it. And there's that shot which you put on our Twitter and everyone's sharing of the three of them, Kendall on the floor and Roman's kind of standing behind him and Shiv standing kind of with her fingers just on his head, and it's
all
kind of they're not a physical family. They're not good at emotions. Roman even says the throwaway line when she walks away to the phone call, "Oh, you're just gonna leave me here with all the feelings."
Yeah,
like they're not comfortable doing it. They're not good at it, but they're trying. And I think that is what really got to me. I thought it was really beautiful that Roman tried to make his. It just reminded me of that. Like again, you come back to that line earlier in the season where he says, "No, I'm not signing that letter. He helped me hold my pee-pee."
I know.
Like it's the
big
same,
brother.
but as he's applying humor to and levity to situations.
But he actually says to him, like,
it's the way he translates his feelings.
And he says, I wouldn't have even jumped in after him, which we know is also true. We know Roman wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And then
whereas his dad uses the same information to blackmail and extort his son and manipulate him, right?
Yeah,
so
like
it shows
Logan,
you
all the stuff Kendall's saying is like, how the whole thing was handled. Like, obviously Kendall is responsible for his own actions, and Kendall acted awfully. That did result in someone's death. But immediately how his dad handled it in the aftermath was a very sinister cover-up, which was probably unnecessary.
I think that's the worst thing that Kendall did. He it's what Kendall did in the aftermath.
But it was all covered up. But his dad covered it up as leverage as well as not wanting scandal for his own family. He just wanted something to hold over.
He's got something over.
And he
his son.
says, "Your daddy's little boy, number one boy." But like at this moment, then when Shiv's like, "Fuck, we have to go," like it's about to happen, and then I just love this kind of change where Kendall's suddenly back to the Kendall we used to know, the business Kendall, and he's like, can I be with you guys, because he can't be on his own. He gets in the car, they explain what's happening, and he's straight away like, he can't sanction a deal without us. Kendall understands all the logistics.
Kendall saves them. Kendall's because he got the inside track. He knows this stuff inside out.
Yeah.
We saw, in season 2 when Kendall just got into the books and gutted that company and fired all those people.
We have to believe that
how to business.
He's just turned 40. Like, my understanding is how it probably worked is Kendall probably did like an MBA in Harvard or something. He's probably worked in the business for like at least 10 years, if not 15 years at a senior level. Whereas Shiv only came in season 2, and Roman always just had fake jobs until recently.
They actually, there's this beautiful moment when they're in the taxi. And they kind of say, like, I think we actually will be a good team. This will be kind of fun.
And
we can fight over it. I'm looking forward to it.
Kendall will be chair of the board because they all know Kendall is not now able to be CEO. And then she says, me or Roman can be CEO. We can do it together. And Kendall's like, Roman's like, I actually think that, like, working with you guys, he says something like, working with you guys could be like really great.
Yeah, which is, and
he says, I think we could make a pretty good team.
Which is, I love this. This is Roman, rare moment of like,
he loves his
honesty from Roman, because Roman plays by default the cynical humor to everything.
But also Roman
he never shows his feelings. And
2 episodes ago, let's not forget that Roman also actually physically pushed Kendall over.
Oh yeah, this is the thing. They're awful people, and they make you forget.
And then Shiv makes her fatal phone call to Tom.
I know.
Tom,
well, okay. Do you want to go into Tom now, or do you want to go into the confrontation? All right, let's talk about that.
I think we should just go through it sequentially now.
Okay, so
she's basically like, Tom, this is what's happening. Me and my siblings are going to run the business. You need to run a smear campaign about Dad on the news. And he's like, okay, but what position have you thought about where I am in this?
Yeah,
She's
where
like,
do I fit into all this?
"Oh,
Which is a
yeah,
question
yeah."
that Tom has been asking
He always
her.
asks, yeah.
It's like his catchphrase. What about me? Where do I feel? And she never.
She didn't
She
have an
is
answer.
always surprised by the question. Always.
She should have been immediately, you're going to be CFO. She
I mean-
should have had some brilliant title for him.
I think a lot of people are talking about how Tom betrayed Shiv, but Shiv betrayed Tom and has been betraying him with 1,000 tiny daggers. He just
I
gave one
would
big
say
dagger to her at the end.
Shiv has continuously mistreated her husband.
Yeah.
Tom has actively betrayed her, I would say.
Yeah, okay.
They made an agreement on the phone. Shiv has never gone back in an agreement with Tom that we've seen. They made an agreement on the phone. They hung up.
She's gone back in the agreement of their marriage.
What agreement?
Well, she was like sleeping around when he wasn't comfortable with it.
Yeah, but she told him that she wants an open marriage.
Yeah, okay,
Like,
all right.
I'm not suggesting in any way that Shiv's a good wife, by the way. I'm just saying that, like, what Tom
You think
did,
she's been relatively honest with him? Is that
I
what
think
you're
she's been
saying?
relatively honest, and like, and also when he said like I'm going to go to prison, she never tried to talk him out of it. Like, she's not nice, and like she's not making him feel wanted. But like Tom
She's like, why do we keep talking
sees
about
a
this?
really good opening here, and he in that conversation with Greg initially we were like, what are Tom and Greg talking about? And then I was like, oh, they were trying to make it look like they were talking about Logan, but
Yeah,
what
I thought they
soon as-
were.
No, because as soon as they were saying they were going to sell their souls, the hilarious
Yeah,
bit about
that-
the scene is that Greg didn't even know what Tom was talking about, and Greg just agreed
And
to
Greg
it.
just agreed, but that is consistent with Greg, because Greg goes along with whatever is happening in whatever conversation he's in at any given time.
But Greg's
Like,
got swag
he-
in this episode because, like, as
yeah,
an
Greg
aside,
has changed.
during the wedding, he's like, I think I've actually got a chance with the princess, and
People
he's
ha-
loving himself. He's between the princess and the PR girl, and he turns to the princess and he's like, I love weddings, and then he turns to the PR girl and goes, oh, kill me now.
But this is exactly my point with Greg. He says to everybody whatever they want to hear, but he also
stands
he's
up to
somebody
Roman though.
who
He
yes,
goes, you're a self-admitted sex pervert.
But this is this is Greg Breaking Bad. He's he's gained confidence. Did you notice he stutters less? He's more confident in this
Yeah.
episode. His stature is different.
He finally
Like
got legs.
Nicholas Braun plays Greg differently here. But what is dark to me is how eager Greg is in that moment. He's leaning in and he's smiling and
because he's on the in, which he
he's-
never normally is.
but he's also just excited, like, and it's really twisted and sinister, the dialogue. Like,
But don't forget that, like, at
who
the end
needs
of the
souls anyway? And he's
at the end
laughing.
of the last
It's-
season,
it's-
Greg was the one who like went to Kendall with the papers. Like, Greg's the one early this season who was like trying to negotiate, like, the director of parks.
Greg has been seduced by the lifestyle, by all of it, all the stuff that has left Logan and Maz Mikkelsen
And Tom goes,
hollow and empty.
Tom goes, attack dog, Greg Weiler. You could be heading away from the endless middle towards the bottom of the
Lost
top.
such a good line, and you
Can
could
I
have
have
your
a
own. You
Greg?
could have your own Greg. You
He
could have
goes, "Can I have
20
a Greg?"
Gregs.
He goes, you could have 20 Greg, sell your soul. And then Greg goes, what can I do with the soul anyway? And then one of them says, souls are boring.
And then they're just leaping around and hugging. I've seen people saying that this is the most romantic scene in the show's history, which I kind of, and we've spoken about that. Somebody
No, I
cut
think
together
the
a
most romantic
rom-com
scene-
trailer for these two.
I think the most romantic scene was when Roman asked his girlfriend to pretend she was dead so that they could have sex.
Oh God, stop! And I think a lot has been made of the obvious sort of foreshadowing of this with the Nero and Spuros things, where I think we might have talked about it in our part one. I can't remember, where Nero betrayed his pregnant wife and marries his slave Spuros. Like it's kind of it's a bit almost a bit narratively neat. He even calls him Spuros.
By the way, I saw
But
people speculating online that Shiv's pregnant. She's not pregnant because it was the last episode, which is the same day
Yeah,
that
it's
they
the
had
same
sex.
day,
And what?
yeah.
She suddenly stopped taking the pill. That takes months to wear off.
I,
so no.
I think you're right. Now I have a question for you. Right?
Yeah.
Do you think that Tom has been giving information to Logan about the siblings throughout this entire season, or this was the moment?
I don't think so.
Right, I agree with you, because a lot of the internet is speculating. People are trying to find. People are implying.
No, Tom had agreed to fall on a sword. That's what he'd done. And then in the last episode, he found out he doesn't need
Yes,
to go to
but
prison.
people are finding all these clues now because it's the internet.
No, I
and
saw one of the clues
they're-
you sent me where they're like, oh, in episode 3.
Tom tipped him off about the siblings meeting, and Tom told him to send the donuts because he was in the room with Logan. That's one thing people are saying.
What, as if Tom would say, send donuts.
No, he didn't tell him to send the donuts, but he told him the kids were meeting because Shiv phones Tom from there, and Tom is with Logan. It does kind of make sense, but
maybe. But I think what
just
Tom
don't
did
think-
here was on the fly.
I just think it's more. I agree. I think this is the big turning point for Tom, and I think it's
Yeah.
more interesting. I think a
If
lot of
Shiv had
people
said,
are looking
I love you, and you're going to be CFO, Tom would not have turned on
But
them.
there's and I think people are just looking for clues. Like
there was a
Tom's
clue,
been doing this the whole time.
the
It's been going
internet.
on for a long time.
That clue where it's like Tom phoned a lawyer
Yeah,
in
called
like
Rex something,
an
and then
early episode, and then that's the same lawyer who's doing the divorce paperwork reworking today. But that would have just been the family lawyer. That's why Tom would have phoned him.
And also, it doesn't make sense, guys. I'm talking to the internet now. It doesn't
You're
make
talking to
sense,
Reddit.
this theory that Tom has been betraying Shiv this whole season and has had Logan's ear. Because why would he have courted Kendall at all then in that episode? He was clearly
Yeah.
very nervous about the whole thing. And I genuinely
But we
believe
saw
was
him
considering
courting Logan. We
jumping
saw
to
the
Kendall.
scene. Him and Logan were in a studio, and he said like, "I'll go to prison for you." And Logan's like, "You're not even going to ask for anything." And Tom's like, "No."
Yes, but no, the internet's saying all this stuff was happening that we didn't see, where he was feeding Logan information
Nah, I
about
don't
the
think
siblings.
so.
Yeah, I'm
But
with
anyway,
you. I completely agree.
Whether or not he was, it doesn't really matter, because what pushed him over the end here was that Shiv didn't give a fuck about him.
Yeah.
And like that
And
scene, we were so pumped. Like we were so pumped for the gang getting together. Like we were like, yes, when they go into the room to the dad, and like everyone's sitting there. And
What
it's
a scene!
such an-
I'll
I
remember
actually
this
don't
scene
have any notes
for
from
the
it,
rest of my
'cause
life.
I couldn't take notes when I was watching the scene because it was just like it's so much, and that's where I actually really want to watch the scene again. But it just all. The dad is like, he treats them all. He basically is like, his tactics for dealing with all the kids are just wild. With Kendall, he's like, get him out of me, or I don't even want to look at him. He wants to blank Kendall.
Yeah.
With Shiv, he's
But
like,
he wants
"Meh,
them.
meh, meh,
He
meh."
wants them to do it. That's the other thing.
Yeah, he wants
He's
his-
splitting up the.
Yeah, he's trying to
he says,
separate
"Get
them."
him out of here" to the kids.
And that's always his tactic. He wants to separate them. He wants to.
Yeah.
He wants Kendall to be exiled. Kenny go nut like he says to them. He wants Shiv. He's doing misogynistic way of like me when she's talking, which men do to women. And then with Roman, he's like, "Come here, boy. You know you're my number one." Like he's got his ways of manipulating them. And when they all, particularly Roman now, because see, Kendall doesn't give a fuck at this point. Kendall is so checked out.
Yeah.
That Kendall is like the stalwart in the group.
And Shiv is, Shiv has wavered this whole season, but she is determined in this whole scene. Oh my God, how she plays it is amazing.
They're literally like,
Her
if you're
eyes.
not gonna
Oh
give
my
it-
God, she's seething.
She's
She's
seething.
so angry.
But
with
they're
him.
like, I think Shiv, I think they've always had this notion that like if it's one of them, they'll end up accepting it. But as soon as it's going to be none of them,
yeah.
they are fucking livid. Again, I still think they're all complete freaks that they ever think any of them are going to get it, but that's beside the point. But like Roman's like Roman finds it really hard to be like, no, Dad, I'm sticking with my siblings, and then the dad just fucking loses it. He's just like, you're fucking pedestrians, and then it's almost so fucked up is that he'd already removed their power, but he still wanted to see if he could dominate them before telling them he'd remove their power.
Exactly, exactly. He wanted to. He was testing them, but he knew he was going to win the whole time. That's why it's so sadistic that he still did that to them.
And Jerry and Frank and everyone's just sitting there watching, like
cold and silent.
But like a front row seat to this mad family.
But like a patron of the podcast and a friend of mine, Joe Kiley, texted me. He said, "Now we know how Jerry, Frank, and Carl have survived so long."
Yeah.
Right. They ride the wave.
Exactly.
They've been riding waves for decades. The other thing, the cat wants us to play with him. The cat's like, "What are you doing? You're walking past me 100 times." The lines that got me here was, when Logan says to them, "Stop talking! Now you're taking pictures of the cat. This is the worst pictures. Nobody wants to see your pictures on the close friends Instagram, guys. If you want to see blurry pictures of the moon and a cat, head to the Instagram Patreon channel." When he says, "Make your own fucking pile," I loved that. This is my pile. What are you going to do with your $5 billion, Dad? Well, it's my pile of money. Go make your own fucking pile.
I mean, he's right. The thing about Logan
He is right.
Like, I'm sorry now, but if Oscar tried to come and take the Cinemile off us, do you know what, Oscar? Make your own fucking podcast. Like, you're not entitled to your parents' company. But because their whole life they've been told they are. And
we're selling this podcast to Netflix for $5 billion, by the way.
But like their whole life they've been primed and preened and like told that they should be wanting this business. So now they think they want it. But in reality, guys, just fuck off. Like, this whole scene is so interesting to me because emotionally I'm so invested in the kids getting back on the dad. I'm so devastated to them as to what their mom did because it was brutal. I feel so sad for Roman as he like buckles on the floor and his siblings hold him together. So all those emotions, and then I also have my practical emotions of you're
like,
a bunch
wake
of fucking
up.
spoiled brats.
Yeah.
There's so much good you could be doing in the world, and here you are pissing around the world on private jets, polluting the world, and it's all bullshit because you're all billionaires. And Logan's right, you actually have no fucking entitlement to his business. So I'm in such two minds when I'm thinking about the show, but when I'm in it, when I'm watching it, I'm like, they deserve the business.
Well, it's just
they should
sad.
get Logan out. I wanted to see the news. I wanted to see Tom do the news about Logan being old and doddery and not able for the job, because what they
Yeah.
wanted to do was what they'd done to the president.
Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly.
Logan does deserve that. So like,
But it's not going to happen.
they all deserve what's coming to them. But as we said in the last episode, it's like all the people they took for granted. So like Greg, Jerry,
Tom.
everyone that they've taken for granted is now not standing by them, because of course who would have any loyalty to these people. What surprises me though, what really surprised me is that, and I just don't understand, I'm sure it's legally accurate or they wouldn't have put it in, how divorce terms that were negotiated some 30 years ago that gave things to the children, so that ownership to the children, how that could be
All
undone.
you have to know is that he's got the best lawyers in the world. He's got teams of them. They probably undid the holding company somehow, right? There's loopholes.
They probably had a clause in it that like can be negotiated.
Zuckerberg did it to his friend, didn't he? If you believe the
Yeah,
social
but Mark
network.
Zuckerberg's probably not right.
Who gets a call out in this episode, by the way?
Yeah, just so
I
that they can
enjoyed
say
that.
they hate him.
Just so they can say they hate him.
But to say that, like, I don't know, like, to say that something that you gave your kids via your wife in a divorce settlement years ago, to take that away is one of the lowest, crummiest,
Yeah.
shittiest things that Logan could do. And for the mom to be on the other end going, I don't want anything to do with this, like, I'm getting out of here, it's my wedding, I'm happy for my husband. And Shiv is just livid because Shiv's just gone and done this speech for her mom. Shiv is the one who the mom really kind of seduced
Pretty
in this
awful
episode.
speech though, as well. But go on.
Yeah, but it was kind of like Shiv did say, like, I'm actually jealous of you that you get to spend time with my mom, which I thought was a very honest moment. Like, she does miss her mom too. And like this, and combined with when you met the mom in, was it season 2 or season 1?
Season 2.
This combined when we met the mom last time, it's like, God, the mom doesn't give a shit about them either. Like,
No.
the mom's also under Logan's spell.
But they really are all alone. But that's what I love about them being together now, this united front.
I
And
know, I'm dying to see where season 4.
I know.
I'm presuming
I don't know where they're going to go
when
now.
we see
'cause
that scene of like Shiv looks out the door and sees Logan patting Tom on the back, and then Tom comes in and acts all concerned, and Shiv doesn't say anything. Her face is just
She
fucking.
knows. Oh, what a good! I love that they finished on that frame.
I love that they finished, and
Yeah.
then someone we saw on Twitter pointed out that frame of like Shiv sitting and Tom's hands on her shoulders, exactly like one of the frames in the credits of Shiv and Logan when she's a kid.
Yes, very good.
My presumption will be that when we come into season 4, Shiv and Tom are divorced or divorcing.
Yeah, I
Shiv
feel like
will not-
I feel
why
like
would
we
she
need,
stay with him
We
after
need
that?
a time jump. I'd almost love if the kids set up their own rival company somehow, and then it's just a company battle.
Well, it's interesting because Logan.
But then Logan's out technically.
But Logan was like, no, but when he was kind of negotiating with your man when we heard him, he
Oh,
was
he wants
still
a
like,
seat on the
he'd
board
have a seat.
and all that. Yeah.
And your man did say, Stellan Skarsgård did say, like, you know, I would treat your kids fairly and like take them on their merit.
saying
Like
that,
Kendall's out. Like Kendall's not trying to get back into that company, and you could tell that from that
Yeah.
whole scene. Kendall already told his dad in the last episode, I want out. And he said to the guys, I'm out, I'm not here. He was just doing this to fuck his dad because he hates his dad.
Yeah.
But you kind of have this sad feeling that like Roman will still try and be part of the company. Tom presumably will get a really good position now. So now I'm really curious as to where season 4 could go, because probably even Shiv will now have checked out, because like, okay, her own husband, dad and mother have betrayed her. She has no, unless she maybe gets with Stellan Skarsgård, I can't really see how she would have any claim to the company at this point.
It's a real
She
challenge.
does still have a seat. She has that seat on the board that she negotiated
you
herself.
just like? Why do you just want her to get with Stellan Skarsgård?
I just
Why-
want some action.
You just want some
There's never any-
steamy sex
But there's
scenes.
never any romantic stuff in Succession.
Yes,
so
there is. Did you not hear me earlier talking about the Tom and Greg scene?
I
Nero and Spiros. What more do you want?
Because I enjoyed was it season 1 when she was like having her affair with her co-worker.
Yeah,
I
don't
kind of
know.
enjoyed that
It's a bit-
subplot.
No, anyway.
Roman
The-
Kendall didn't bring his girlfriend to the wedding, which I thought was interesting. I don't know what's going on
yes,
there.
good point.
And
I hadn't
I just
noticed
want
that.
everyone in the comments to tell us like what the hell do you think is going to happen next season, because I can't. They're obviously making another season, but I can't see.
Yeah, very curious to
From a
hear what you guys
character
think. I think but I think I love when shows do this, when they write themselves into somewhere narratively interesting rather
the
than
end of last
rather than
season-
just maintaining the status quo for another season or
Because the
returning.
end of last season and the end of season 1, we could really clearly see a path to the following season. Like the end of last season was like, yes, Kendall's taking Logan to court. Now it's like they're
It
just
was worth it.
defeated. But as you say, they're united, and that's an interesting dynamic.
I
for
think it
next
is
season.
interesting, and I think the
Con for president.
another thing I saw pointed out on Con for president, yes please. Another thing I saw pointed out on the Succession subreddit, which I'm devouring at the moment, was that the this is this 29th episode of Succession, and it was set at a wedding with a huge betrayal. And the 29th episode of Game of Thrones was the Red Wedding. Which
I
is,
doubt they timed that, but that's just a coincidence.
and another
Weddings are often a setting for drama, though. It's the end of season 1 as well.
another parallel I hadn't. And I know there was a lot of weddings.
They're
in
just
this.
emotional times where you will have a big group together in
They
a
do
new
big
location.
family events well.
But no, but
this-
also if you think it's a way of having all the characters in a room in a potentially new location with lots of heightened emotions.
And actually, that's been Succession's kind of trick for each of the episodes. They pick, Kendall's birthday party, the big
Yeah.
shareholder meeting. They pick an event.
I think
and
the
bring
red
everyone
wedding thing
together.
is like, that's like maybe a handy
I
coincidence.
just thought it was an interesting point. The same amount of episodes had passed, but the and this does feel like Red Wedding level stuff to
But
me.
has the same amount of episodes passed, or has someone just written that on Reddit?
I mean, yes, it's the same. It was episode 9, season 3.
Yeah, but how many episodes are in each season of Succession versus how many episodes in each season of...
10 in each.
But this is episode 29,
Do you
not
want
episode
me?
13.
You want me to?
I want you to have your facts straight.
It's 29 for both. I saw it on Reddit. It's a
Yes,
fact.
that's not a fact.
yeah. Another thing I enjoyed was the commonalities that have been drawn between this and Arrested Development, which I've never noticed before. You've got a horrible dad who's under scrutiny for his company's dealings, and his children, who he pits against each other. The eldest son being completely ridiculed by the rest of the family and out of the loop. The next eldest son running the whole thing and being the heir to the thing and doing all the work and not getting any of the credit. There's a lot of interesting commonalities, which was pointed out to Jesse Armstrong in an interview, and he said he hadn't consciously done it, but he acknowledges all the similarities.
So who's your... I know I said Jesse Armstrong's my MVP, but I was being a bit facetious. But
For
the
me, it's
writing-
Jeremy Strong.
Always, isn't he? Just the MVP of the season, really.
Jeremy Strong is I think he's been in the news a lot because of the New York. I don't think we've talked about it on this, but that New Yorker profile that was done of him.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't read it, it's a really interesting, very long profile that the New Yorker wrote about his kind of acting method and history, and he comes across as someone who's very intensely serious actor, and maybe someone like you probably wouldn't want to hang out with.
Yeah, I personally thought. I mean, it's getting it's created a bit of a stir in the acting community. People like Aaron Sorkin and Jessica Chastain, who've worked with Jeremy Strong, coming out criticizing the article and trying to defend Jeremy Strong.
But he doesn't come across as an asshole.
That's
though.
the thing. I think it's all a bit much. It's not like the man had a really high profile piece written about him, which said essentially, I mean, look, it kind of does feel a little snide at times, but it
does feel snide. There's an agenda. I think the person writing it intended on it feeling a bit snide.
little bit of an agenda, maybe.
But I also
however, it's just like it's still a New Yorker piece saying that he is really committed to acting and gets amazing results. The man's not being cancelled. Like, calm
It's
down,
actually
everyone.
full of praise
He doesn't need your defense. It's
like
full
Chris
of praise
Evans,
for
like
him.
Captain America, talks about how he idolized Jeremy Strong from the age of 8 because he's that good an actor.
Yeah.
Like Dustin Hoffman and Daniel Day-Lewis are his mentors. Like this just makes me laugh when I think of what tabloids have written about women and female actresses in the past, how people can be treated and mocked in newspapers, and then this guy gets essentially a rave review that's a bit snarky.
In the New Yorker, yeah.
And Aaron Sorkin's
And everyone rushes to his
I
defense.
don't have
Releases
social
a
media,
statement.
but
Aaron
I-
Sorkin released a statement.
via Jessica Chastain's Twitter, who's like, Aaron doesn't have social media, but he really needs to say that Jeremy Strong's an incredible actor. Yeah, we know that. He's the fucking
that's-
best actor
that was
on
what
TV.
that's what the New Yorker piece said.
Like, he's the MVP
Anyway.
of the season. He's almost been our MVP of every episode.
Interested to hear everyone else's thought, because I think there is
it's
an
such an
interesting
ensemble.
conversation around it, and
like,
and
you
if you
shift
haven't read the
incredible-
article, we'll
Read
link
it.
to it here if you haven't read
Yeah.
it, and do read it. It's very long, but it's, I think, a really really well written piece, and he got incredible amount of access to him, the journalist.
Because they appear to have known each other since they were in college or something.
But the vibe I get from Jeremy Strong, and this is why he's the MVP of the episode and the season for me, is the vibe I get from this article and watching the show is that he's an incredibly committed professional. He
Yeah.
like, and whatever about, I think it's clear that his acting methods don't always gel with co-workers,
But they
potentially
kind of
some of
say
the
that
co-workers on this
essentially
show.
the co-workers in Succession that are quoted, which is
Kieran Culkin and Brian Cox
yeah,
are
they
quoted.
basically say that like Brian Cox almost says in kind of a fatherly way, like he makes
needs
life,
to look after himself.
He makes life
yeah.
hard for himself, because Brian Cox, it says, is in the old-fashioned method of acting where you turn it on, you turn it off, whereas Jeremy Strong like kind of isolates himself from the cast and like gets really intensely into the scenes, but that really works because Kendall is isolated from them, and like Roman, Kieran Culkin says it makes it a bit harder for him that they don't kind of prep together, but at the same time I think their dynamic is absolutely electric on screen, so it works.
Yeah, exactly.
But like what
He's getting
while
amazing
Jeremy Strong,
results.
he gets, but I also think, to the other actors' credit, like one of the reasons Jeremy Strong is just getting all this praise from us included is because he has probably, in a cast of incredibly interesting characters, he just is always the heart and always is the most interesting. He's been constantly given the most interesting plots.
I would have always said that until this season, where I think Kieran Culkin. Now I'm actually thinking Kieran Culkin is maybe the MVP of this season.
I don't think he is
'Cause-
so, because he's still not. They've softened him and made us a bit more interested in him, but he's not been on the emotional journey we've seen Kendall be on, and how Kendall speaks. He in this show, in this episode, about like he's disconnected from his children and his endeavours. Like, what a way of speaking. And even in this whole episode, like, I don't know, because Shiv is just so unbelievable, and Roman's so unbelievable, and Brian Cox unbelievable, and Jerry is, and
I know,
everyone
how
is.
do you? They're such an incredible ensemble, and that's not even like
you're
talking
not
about
Greg
Matthew
and Tom.
McFadden and Nicholas Braun. Like just this is the best ensemble on TV.
It's the best thing out there, to be honest, that I've seen this year. So what is do you have a line of the episode? I've two, I
I
think.
think the one, I don't have it to hand now, but oh yeah, no. So it was this isn't an amazing line or anything, but it's just, I found it really affected me, was when Logan says to Roman in that finale scene, you know, what have you got? Like, what's your leverage? And he says, I don't know, love. And he says, you come for me with love. You come in here, guns in hands, and you talk about love.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was like, that summed up Logan to me. His, I talked earlier about his scorn and his disregard for people. You know, he calls his children pedestrians, right? And that's the biggest insult he can think of, I think. And love is also something he has no time for, and that sums up
Yeah,
the whole
everything.
show.
Even Logan's relationship with his wife is just a deal. So I have two fun
It means
lines.
nothing to him.
Favorite lines of the episodes. No, I've probably got three favorite lines of the episodes. So Con, when he said, my campaign is fucked and you're going to leave me and I love you. I just love that line from Con because it just sums up his whole life in that one line. Shiv, I really enjoyed when she said, I hope your marriage is as rich, rewarding and fulfilling as mine. It was one of the funniest lines of the episode.
Yeah, do you think she
She's
means
again,
it?
she was deliberately belittling Tom.
Oh, right.
That's what I think. That was another fucking jab from Shiv at Tom. And then finally,
She really had it
my
going.
absolute line of the episode is when Tom said, "You're a plane crash away from being the weirdest king
Yes.
in Europe."
No, that is amazing. The whole Luxembourg
I mean,
thing.
all the Kendall lines about falling apart and being disconnected from his body, they're very deep. And but yeah, my takeaway is like just the constant humor in this show is just on top of all of this. Like, imagine being Jesse Armstrong being able to write like that.
What a balance. To be able to balance like that like just like empathy and cynicism and just real darkness,
get us
and
to
then
simultaneously,
levity
like,
and make us laugh. I mean,
Make
it's
us root for characters that we really despise is like quite something.
it's an absolute and like there's not a minute of this show that is wasted. Like it just feels so lean, doesn't
Come here,
it?
it's
Every
9:45 on a Wednesday night. We're walking up and down your mom's garden to talk about this show.
I could talk
That's
about it
just how
forever.
good
I
it
don't
is.
know what we're gonna do without it. I feel like just life's not gonna be
I want to do
as good.
I actually really like doing weekly episodes about a TV show, but it has to be a brilliant TV show to warrant us doing it. We've recorded what we've been watching.
It's a
that we'll
big
publish.
commitment. So
Is there anything good enough for us to do? We've recorded what we've been watching on stuff we've been watching lately, including And Just Like That, which some of you asked about. So we'll publish that this week. But yeah, are there any shows that are actually good enough to warrant this level of discussion, or do we just And Just Like That? I'm going to do a full season review at the end, like we often do. But yeah, let's have a think, because this has been really fun. We love doing
let
this
us know
every
in the
week.
comments if
We
there's
love all the
something you
comments.
do want us
Let
to
us
look
know
at.
if you think there's anything truly worthy of weekly episodes, who your MVP of the episode was, the season was, favourite lines, theories for next season. Keep it all coming.
Yeah, you've got a lot of homework, guys.
Yeah,
So
a
we'll
lot of-
see you
and,
in the comments.
Sorry for releasing this in 2 parts.
Let's keep the chat going.
We just wanted to be as epic as possible with the finale.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.